Hey guys, Rex here. This is part 2 of the Brace Yourselves for the 4th of July video we did. And it's actually a standalone topic we got going on here too, because this is kind of the framework upon which a lot of what's been going on is hung. This act coincides with the scripture stuff, if you guys are into that. It's almost as if the bad guys in the world know their role in scripture. And they're happily fulfilling their role as the bad guys in scripture. Very interesting. So whatever is happening here, or whether it's just they're both coexisting and working in tandem without knowing it, that's possible too, right? But this is an interesting letter. There's a lot of them like this and a lot of writings that are more modern. This is older. This is from 1871, basically plotting out the 3 world wars that it would take to create the chemistry reaction to basically take all the nation states and connect them into larger and larger entities. And at the end, you have 2 big opposing, forces that mutually destroy each other. And then they can have their deal they have constructed in the background based on their religion, which they have baptized the entire world in the background. Well, then after everyone's poke around in the ashes, would be super happy to accept any kind of order. And it's like a math equation. This is not the only place where this is written about. I mean, besides looking at the scriptural story, which coincides with a lot of this, there's a lot of white papers. You can read Brzezinski's writings. You can read a lot of the other stuff by a lot of the other architects of the world. They put it on the open. You know why? Because they know very few people will read it, and even fewer would want to do anything about it. And if they, in fact, is constructed in such a way that if anyone tries to do something about it, that's constructed into the math of the equation. If anyone figures it out and resists, they're actually participating in the chemistry equation for the reaction they set up. So I will tell you what I think the solution to the solution is, right? When I say solution, I mean the chemistry solution. They've been heating up and now catalyzing for 2.5 world wars, because we're halfway into the 3rd World War already. And I'll tell you what I think the solution is to all that. It's not what you might think. Maybe some of you aren't going to like it, but it's what it is. I'm all about the real dope here on Patreon. So that's what we're about. Ready? So this letter was written, and you might have heard of this, or you might vaguely remember this. This particular one is a little controversial because it was removed from the Library of Congress, and it was just one of them deals that disappeared, like it's been on the records forever, and there's books that reference it with the reference number, but then it's gone. Like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. Also at the British Museum Library, I think, in the 70s it was removed there. People started quoting from it, especially after the first 2 world wars happened, and they're getting ready for the 3rd World War in the information age, where people can write letters and, especially with television and radio, like cats out of the bag. They try to suppress that a little bit, because if people knew what they're being rammed into, they might, and I think it's too late now to not let the reaction happen. It's already happening. Like there's no amount of momentum that you can hit against it. And it's like a freight train. It's like Back to the Future 3, when the train is going full speed and it pushes the DeLorean off the damn cliff. Like the train's already halfway off, going at 88 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour. We're going to stand there and hold it. I mean, it's happening, right? So dig this. And this is an interesting letter from Albert Pike. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's one of those guys. He's not as cool as everyone thinks. He's one of the architects of the stuff back in the day. He wrote some books. And he wrote a letter to Mazzini, which was an Italian revolutionary leader back in the 1800s. And it talks about it's an excerpt from the letter. Ready? Talking about the 3 world wars. This is in 1871, before the First World War. If you're terrible at history, World War I started in 1914-ish, right? Depending on where you draw the line. So the first, and I quote, "The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati," because Pike is one of those guys, to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. So these are all pretty brand new words at the time this letter was written. Some might even say that this letter actually coined some of the phrases and words being used for some of these outfits, because communism pre-exists the Bolshevik Revolution by quite a long time, right? And like the Illuminati and stuff now has become a Hollywood thing, but back in the day it was a much more, it's been camouflaged now with all the pop culture stuff. And you can't buy a cat, or excuse me, you can't buy a t-shirt at Walmart without cats and pyramids and stuff with like eyeballs on them and the whole Illuminati deal. Just everywhere. It's like saturating our deal. So it's become cartoonish, which is camouflage. It's comedy, guys. Don't worry about what we're doing. We're just silly. It's just like, watch that movie, The National Treasure, where, what's his name? That skinny guy goes and like discovers all the stuff in Abraham Lincoln's head in the whatever, South Dakota. Like, that's what we think of when we think of that. So the First World War, basically, I mean, what happened was like, what was written in this letter is basically what happened. They wanted to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia, right? Because that was a giant oppositional force to the true control mechanisms by what you might call the Jesuit general or the Black Pope. And so there's a lot of politics behind the scenes that there's a lot of the strings are pulled there. And that's always been kind of like, they're kind of rogue off on their own deal. That's why I think a lot of people hate Russia so much historically, especially in the West, is because the Great Schism, going back a long time ago, way a long time ago, right? Politically, there was a breakup in the church. Now, religiously, it's probably very close to the same thing, but politically, it was a big deal. And so they wanted to establish a fortress of atheistic communism there that would completely destroy the Orthodox in Russia and all those other states. And the divergence is, like, these guys plan to whisper in their ears and bring the British and Germanic empires used to get that war rolling. And the point of the war, the reaction that they wanted to complete, was that communism would be built and used later as a tool to destroy other governments and weaken the religions. I don't like commies. You know why? Because they're here to weaken God's law. That's their function. Because these guys who are plotting this out ahead of time supposedly have different plans. Like they don't like the Creator. They're fighting against him. Second World War. This is a quote from the same letter. And go on. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism, National Socialism, is destroyed and that political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. Okay, so basically World War II was to because you had the League of Nations happen after World War I, right? So all these little nation states formed leagues of nations. And by the time World War II happens, those different opposing powers and the stuff that happened there welded together a whole nother, it's like getting into bigger and bigger and bigger chunks, because everything's trying to, by gravity of evil, trying to go back towards the Babylon system, Tower of Babel. Everyone's on the same page. There's one world empire, apostasy against the Most High. They're going towards that. And they're going to use all these different opposing sides to basically get a very efficient burn on their reaction. So they created the situation where the communism would really become strong after that, because it wasn't strong enough, and also they could create a catalyst situation by fulfilling biblical prophecy, because the biblical prophecy is way before this letter was written. I mean, for thousands of years, they knew that eventually Israel would come back and be a state again in one day, miraculously. In the end times, it would become a country again. And then we're told what happens in Ezekiel, right? What the judgment that happens there after, Gog Magog war, right? So very interesting study there. Here's where it gets really interesting, because that all happened too. Second World War. If this letter is authentic, which it was written before I was born, so I wasn't there when they wrote it, that's exactly what happened. So they got the First World War right on schedule, Second World War right on schedule, planned out ahead of time. The Third World War, this is interesting. Now read this carefully, because we might have been here to see this one happen. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, State of Israel, right, mutually destroy each other. This is their plan. Now, we know from reading the book, that's what they're going to try to do. All the tribes are going to be got together. The hooks will be in their jaws, pulling them, like Persia and, Turkey and North Africa, and all the tribes that are against Israel are going to surround them, and they're going to have the backing of superpowers, right? So read on. Meanwhile, the other nations, while the State of Israel and Islam is duking it out, meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall enlist the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm in which all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, which these guys aren't atheists. They have a god, Lucifer, right? Of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries. Okay, now these revolutionaries of nihilists and atheists is what it's talking about. So I'll read it again. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass and direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration. Will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Is that what they're trying to do, man? Because that's a lot of that. When you read that, you're like, yeah, that would fit in. That would fit into the biblical narrative quite well. We're told that was going to happen, and these guys are plotting it out straight out of the book from their own angle. So they're going to create a social cataclysm using these radical, people wonder, why are they marching around all June doing this just horrific stuff, and they're just pushing it on the kids, and they're like, all the other stuff that's going on, the revolutionaries, they burned down the country in 2020 or whatever, right? And they'll do it again here probably soon when the catalyst is injected. But the plan has always been to demoralize the country on both ends, because there's going to be people who completely go bonkers and just go full Babylonian retard, right? That's your crazy minority of revolutionaries, the ones that have zero moral compass. Christianity, according to the letter, which agrees with the warnings we have in the Bible, okay, which is interesting. I'm not saying the letter is anything special. I'm just saying that could be the plan, right? Just so we can hear all the, the different angles of how stuff could happen. Christianity is standing on what exactly? In terms of, and we talked about this before in a video. I don't know if I released that one to the expert tier yet. Maybe I'll release it to the expert tier. We'll see. But we talked a bit about that because Christianity has degenerated into a tradition. It's degenerated into a country club. And so when people get pissed off enough at these revolutionaries, they're going to lose their moral compass. Because their moral compass, the law's done away with in most of Christianity, just thinks that, the 10 Commandments, that's Old Testament stuff. We do what we feel led to do, people. Well, when you allow the foundation to be dissolved from under your feet, which restrains us from doing evil, right? Now, there are certainly authorized times where we can engage in lawful combat, okay? But when your moral compass has been dissolved over the course of a long time, and all this modern doctrine stuff says that if you try to obey the Bible, then you're a terrible Christian. Like my buddies who are converting over to trying to be obedient because they love him are getting the most hell from their parents who are way into the church. All the church people they know, all their church friends are like, we can't fellowship with you anymore. You're trying to do the Bible. Holy smokes, people. That's a freaking problem right there. Rex, you don't understand. I do understand, man. How about this? On Judgment Day, you explain why you thought that it was bad to follow what he told us to do, and I'll explain why I thought it was good that I was trying to do what he said to do. Just trying to do what Papa said to do, that's all. But if you don't have that, if you don't have that foundation and the law, the framework of the law, which he gave us, they're going to jump right into this trap, which is UW, unconventional warfare. They're going to be so tweaked by the enemy of these radical revolutionaries, burning down all the churches, burning down the towns, wrecking the economy, making everyone starve. They're going to lose it. And you're going to see the pendulum that goes left, right. It's going to go way right, like cuckoo puff mode. Like they're going to snap, and they'll be unrestrained. And when they do, right here it says, this is their plan. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists. We shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, which are terrible guys, origin of savagery, and then elsewhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those evil destroyers of civilization, which they are, and the multitude, everyone else who's watching this is going to watch all the church guys just smash these revolutionaries. The multitude, disillusioned now with Christianity because of all the horrific stuff they're going to lose it, whose deistic spirits from that moment will be without compass or direction. Why? Because they weren't grounded in the law. They didn't respond appropriately. The deistic spirits from that moment will be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but knowing where to render its adoration, will receive. Then, at that time, everyone's going to be like, hey man, this got way out of hand. You church guys obviously don't know what love is about because you just destroyed all these people. You overreacted. And you crazy nihilists and atheists, you guys need to learn more about God. Let's meet in the middle. He's within us all, people. He's within us in our heart. It's us that really is in charge around here. We are as gods. Do as thou wilt. It is us who are truly God's people. Humanism is Luciferianism. What? I don't know about that, Rex. Yeah, I'm not talking your philosophy class from college, which is gay, by the way. What is the root of Lucifer's malfunction? What did Satan, the adversary, do in the Garden of Eden? He told Adam and Eve they will be God. Humans will be God. It's all about what they want. That's humanism, which is the original sin, the thing that put us on these tracks in the first place. Straight back to the Garden of Eden, straight back to the fall of man, the common denominator. Pride and ego messing with you to where you think you're God and you get to make the decisions. It will take us back to that, the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine, not with all the emo stuff from Hot Topic, the pure doctrine of Lucifer, which appears to be beautiful and light and is so bright and light and it just feels right. Brought finally out into public view. What do they mean by that? Brought finally into public view. You and me have been immersed in the doctrine of Lucifer our whole lives. If you are looking at this light coming off the screen right now, where's the angel of light? Where do you think that comes from? What kind of light? Microwave light radiation, communication, mass communication, fiber optic cables, technology, computers, like making it very easy to send massive stuff to where the sins of man literally in the three-dimensional physical world, the sins of man reach unto the heavens, into outer space, because we're projecting our horrific shit that's online into the heavens, literally. And then he destroys us and destroys Babylon, the great mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Because the sins have reached even unto heaven. He's like, okay, you guys are broadcasting this online on nakedchineselady.com and all this other stuff, and then your whatever pride things, you're filming it and sending it in signals, even where up there. You're like projecting this across the universe now? That's not acceptable. What do you wonder what that stuff means, huh? It makes more sense now that it literally is happening on top of all the figurative layers. So here we are. Brace yourselves. They are going to bring about a social cataclysm one way or another, whether or not this letter's true or not. That seems to be the facts of what happened in World War I and World War II, no matter if this letter is legitimate or not. Everything is primed for the final cataclysm, isn't it? They're going to get atheism, theistic atheism, the radical communists like Russia and China, that's the political backing of that side. And the revolutionaries, which is all fifth generational warfare, right? And also all the infiltrators they've had into the education system this whole time to demoralize the country. Like that Russian dude kept warning us about, like, hey, we've infiltrated your pop culture and all your stuff. And like, it takes a few generations for it to completely burn itself to the ground. But like, we destroyed you and you didn't even know. We poisoned you when you were sleeping. We poisoned you when you were sleeping with all the stuff you've been feeding to your children, all the media. But I'm telling you, they're cranking up the temperature. They're cranking up the temperature on both sides, the right and the left, making everyone all pissed off all the time. And they're going to release catalysts, just like they're doing. That's what they've been doing with all this stuff they've been rubbing in your face, all the evil that they're doing, like online, like we will have your children. They sing songs about it. The San Francisco choir sings songs, how they're going to take your children. Why? Because they're trying to foment a social cataclysm, and the useful idiots across the world on the left and on the right. Useful idiots also on the right, guys. How dare you, Rex? Wave the flag more, F Biden. Like, yeah, I know. You think driving around your double dually pickup truck with rolling coal on, Femi-looking kids standing on the street corner saying, F Biden, rolling coal on them commies, like, is that the solution to this deal? You want to know what the solution is? Well, Rex, we better go stop them. Why would you stop them? Why would you want to stop them? We have to demonstrate our fruit as humans. We suck at this game. We make terrible kings, don't we? We are warned. We were warned. You guys want to have a king? Are you sure about that? I'm not a good enough king for you. It's going to be terrible. You're going to be enslaved by it. We have to allow the fruit out of love to fully demonstrate itself so that we quit going down this damn trail ever again. That's why he's letting it play out, because he loves us. And his beloved children really thought that they could handle it. He's like, man, I hate to let you go down this path and learn it, but I love you. You have to learn it. I'll be here to catch you, those of my children that are actually obedient and love me, to catch you maybe even on the other side. Everyone gets that one confused too. They think that the end of life is the end of everything. He can bring you back in the snap of a finger, so calm the hell down. Oh no, I could die. Yeah, well, most people that ever existed are going to die. A tiny, tiny, tiny amount will maybe survive to see the very end. And the rest will be snapped to life. So calm down on that going to die stuff. And that's what motivates people to be compelled to fight all the time. Like, oh no, my physical well-being. Like, dude, what about the spiritual well-being? What about hitting the target there? This is the whole time you're sitting at a desk and it's a multiple choice question test. A, B, C, or D. Okay. So this horrific shit happens. Do I follow him? Do I follow me? Do I follow them? Or do I follow the enemy? Follow him. That's the answer every time. Obey what he said to do every time. That even if we don't be able to execute it, we should know that that's the answer. Right? The solution is they've got us on a two-dimensional chessboard, right? This is just graph paper. We got all these little squares in 2 dimensions. They're trying to corner us and move us around, right? So they're moving us all over the place, and we're like, oh no, what do I do? Oh no, I'm here and they're there. They got me cornered, people. This is only 2 dimensions, bro. Got the y-axis, the x-axis, and the z-axis right here. Come above the shit. Come above it. Reach up. Reach up with your hand up so you can grab on to his hand so that he can fill you out and grow you out and sustain you and bring balance to the force with you. When you reach up for his hand, he will sustain you. He will help you to grow in him, and he will give you balance. Then you can be connected, right? Then you can be connected to a survival system beyond the sword. The sword can be used for bad stuff and for horrific stuff, or it can be used to sustain yourself. A blade can be used to cut your food and sustain yourself and build things, or it can be used to destroy things, can't it? So reach up, let him fill you up, bring balance, and connect you to stuff beyond the sword. Use this. The sword can be a plowshare sometime, right? I'm looking forward to that. I'll hammer my freaking whatever stuff that I'm using now as a pointing object to keep the wolves at bay to plow fields. That'll be great. I don't know if this was helpful or if you enjoyed this, guys. Thank you very much for subscribing and for being here on the Rex Reviews Patreon page. The only reason I'm still doing any of this on YouTube or anywhere else is because you guys are helping me make ends meet on it. So been a very big blessing. If you want to continue to help this message get out, because there's a message, I'm just a dude, but if I can help project it, because he handed me this platform, and he handed me that YouTube thing too, man. There's 270,000 dudes on there now. That's a big bullhorn. And so you guys, if you want to help me continue to get that message out, just make sure that I can take care of mom and the little guy, and that I don't go, make him live in a ditch. And then I can use my time for that purpose, which is why I thank you guys for, supporting the mission. So, all right. You guys have a good, restful day, okay, tomorrow. And don't get too rowdy on the 4th. Remember what independence meant in the context of when the founding fathers got it. What were they independent from? Independent from being bossed around by people that could not execute the way they wanted to love God. It was a big motivation for them to be free so they could do their own thing with him. That was the center of gravity. That's why we're blessed for so long. That's why we were blessed for so long. We're losing our momentum in that deal. So if you want to be part of that remnant of the few people that actually understand the 4th of July and how powerful that could be. Independence from Babylon doesn't mean you can just go and make your own Babylon. Independence from Babylon should free you to go and pursue him. Rex out.